Captain Daesung looked at the tactical display. Croth ships were moving into bombardment formation. Their massive weapons were charging with enough power to crack a planet in half. Bua Young, can we reach Torvak's flagship in 12 minutes? The pilot calculated quickly. Yes, but we would have to go through the center of their fleet. We would take heavy damage. Could we survive? Bua Young was quiet for a moment. Maybe, if we are lucky. Daesung nodded slowly. A plan was forming in his mind. A desperate, probably impossible plan. If we ram Torvak's flagship, what happens? Sungmin ran the numbers. Their command systems would be disrupted. The bombardment requires synchronized targeting. Without the flagship, the other ships cannot coordinate. It would give the planet maybe an hour. An hour is better than nothing. Hajin looked at her captain with wide eyes. Sir, you are talking about a suicide mission. I am talking about saving millions of lives. The math is simple. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what Daesung was saying. The Steadfast would fly into the Croth fleet and crash into the enemy flagship. They would all die. But Velith Prime would live a little longer. No, the voice came from the back of the bridge. A young ensign named Gong Su-jin, barely 20 years old. No? Daesung asked. With respect, Captain, if we die today, we want it to mean something. An hour is not enough. There has to be another way. Before Daesung could respond, Hajin's console lit up. Captain, I am receiving a transmission from the surface. It is Elder Miveth. The old Velith's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and sad, but there was something new in his eyes. A fire that had not been there before. Captain Daesung, we have watched your people fight and die for us. We have seen courage we never imagined possible. Now, I must tell you something we have kept secret for a very long time. Daesung leaned forward. What secret? The Velith were not always peaceful. 4 million years ago, we were warriors. We had weapons that could destroy stars. We used them until we nearly ended ourselves. After that, we chose peace. We buried our weapons and swore never to fight again. Miveth paused. His hands trembled. Beneath our capital city, there is a machine. A defense system built by our ancestors. We never wanted to use it. We hoped we would never need it. But today, I will break the promise of 100,000 generations. What does the machine do? Hajin asked. It creates a barrier, an energy shield that covers the entire planet. Nothing can pass through it. Nothing can harm us while it holds. Daesung felt hope rise in his chest. How long can the barrier last? 1 hour. Perhaps 2. After that, the machine will burn out forever. 1 hour. Maybe 2. Not enough to win, but enough to try. Activate it, Daesung said. We will use the time. Miveth closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, tears ran down his ancient face. Forgive me, ancestors, he whispered. Deep beneath the city, something awakened. Ancient machines hummed to life for the first time in 4 million years. Power built in systems that had been sleeping since before humans existed. Then the barrier appeared. A wall of golden light expanded from the planet's surface. It grew and grew until it surrounded Velith Prime completely. A perfect sphere of protection. Croth weapons fired. Their planet-killing beams hit the barrier and disappeared. Nothing penetrated. Nothing even scratched it. Torvak screamed in rage. He ordered all ships to concentrate fire on one point. It made no difference. The Velith ancestors had built well. Ajin, Daesung said, broadcast on all frequencies. Tell every human ship what is happening. Tell them we have 1 hour. The message went out. The surviving human ships responded instantly. Captain Ji Yeon of the Ironheart spoke for all of them. 1 hour is enough. Let's end this." What followed was the most intense space battle in human history. The human ships attacked without fear. They had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Sunmin's shield-breaking weapon hit target after target. Bo Young flew like she was dancing with death itself. On the surface, the Rin led a counterattack through the tunnels. The Velith joined them now, not as fighters, but as support. They carried supplies and treated wounds and guided the humans through passages they would never have found alone. Tejo, still fighting despite his injuries, found himself side by side with Kessa. The young Velith girl was carrying ammunition and passing it to him between shots. "You should hide," he told her. "You should rest," she replied. He laughed. It hurt, but he laughed anyway. Above, the battle reached its peak. Torvak's flagship was surrounded. The Steadfast hit it with everything remaining. Shields collapsed. Hull breached. Systems failed. But Torvak refused to surrender. In his final moments, he aimed his damaged ship at the planet. If he could not destroy it with weapons, he would crash into it himself. Bo Young saw what he was doing. "He's going to ram the barrier," she said. "If he hits it at full speed, he might break through." They soon made his decision instantly. "Intercept course." "We push him away." The Steadfast accelerated to maximum speed. The crew braced themselves. Everyone knew what was coming. The two ships collided in a flash of light and fire. Torvak's flagship spun wildly off course, missing the planet by thousands of kilometers. It tumbled into the darkness of space, broken and powerless. The Steadfast was heavily damaged. Fires burned in multiple compartments. Systems failed throughout the ship. But the hull held. The crew lived. They soon opened his eyes. He was lying on the floor of the bridge. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. Everything hurt. "Status report," he croaked. Hajin was the first to respond. "We are alive, Captain." Barely. Around them, the Kroth fleet was in chaos. Their leader was defeated. Their ships were scattered and leaderless. One by one, they began to retreat. They fled into the darkness of space, running from the Deathworlders who refused to die. On the surface, the Kroth ground forces received the news. Their war chief had fallen. The fleet was gone. They had lost. They surrendered. The Rin watched the Kroth soldiers drop their weapons. They looked broken, confused, unable to understand what had happened. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had never lost. Until today. The barrier around Velith Prime flickered and faded. Elder Miveth's ancient machine had done its job and would never work again. But it had been enough. Days later, the survivors gathered in the ruins of Shalun. Humans and Velith stood together in the morning light. The city was damaged but still standing. The people were wounded but alive. Elder Miveth approached Captain Dayson. The old Velith moved slowly, leaning on a young helper for support. But his eyes were bright with something that had not been there before: hope. "You came when no one else would," Miveth said. "You fought for strangers. You bled for people you had never met. The Velith will never forget this. And we will never be silent when humans need aid." Daisun shook the elder's fragile hand gently. "That is all we ever wanted," he said. "To not be alone in the darkness." Months passed. The story of Velith Prime spread across the galaxy. Other species heard about the Deathworlders, who answered a stranger's call. They heard about humans who fought impossible odds and won. They heard about the little Velith girl who carried ammunition, and the old elder, who broke a 4 million-year promise to save his people. Some species still feared humans. That would never completely change. But now they also understood something else. Human strength was not just about violence. It was about protection, about standing between danger and the helpless. about answering calls for help that no one else would answer. Unrepaired, steadfast, Hajin sat at her console during another quiet night. The ship was traveling to its next mission, whatever that might be. A signal appeared on her screen. Faint, distant, desperate. Another distress call. Another world in trouble. She pressed the communication button. Captain to the bridge. We have a situation. Daesung arrived moments later. He listened to the signal. He looked at the stars. Set a course, he said simply. The steadfast turned toward the darkness. Toward another world that needed help. Because that was what humans did. They answered the call, always. Hajin's fingers moved across her console with desperate speed. She was broadcasting on every human frequency she could reach. Emergency channels. Civilian bands. Even old military codes that had not been used in decades. This is Lieutenant Yoon Ha-jin of the HSS Steadfast. We are at Velith Prime. The Kroth are here in force. The planet holds massive astrium deposits. If the Kroth take this world, they will have enough fuel to threaten the entire sector. Any human vessel in range, please respond. She sent the message again and again. For 30 minutes, there was only silence. Then a voice crackled through the static. Steadfast, this is the cargo ship Bright Wind. We are carrying mining equipment to the outer colonies. We have no weapons. Another voice joined. This is the trade vessel Lucky Star. Same situation. We heard your call. What can we do? Then another. Private yacht Silver Dream responding. I have retired military on board. Ha-jin felt tears building in her eyes. She pushed them back and kept working. Steadfast, this is the HSS Ironheart. Decommissioned battleship. We were heading to the scrapyard. Our weapons still work. 7 ships. 7 human vessels answered the call. Traders, miners, tourists, and 1 old warship that should have been recycled years ago. None of them had any reason to come. None of them would benefit from this fight. They came anyway. Captain Daesung listened to the communications with something warm, spreading through his chest. He had served in the human fleet for 30 years. He had seen courage and cowardice in equal measure. But this was different. This was ordinary people choosing to risk everything for strangers. Thank you all, he said into the communicator. Form up on our position. We attack in 1 hour. The small fleet gathered in the shadow of Velith Prime's moon. 7 ships against hundreds. It should have been hopeless. But humans had a long history of winning hopeless battles. On the surface, the fighting had reached a desperate point. Choi the Rin crouched behind a barricade of broken stone. Her rifle was almost empty. 2 more Marines had fallen, wounded but alive. Taeho was still fighting despite having lost so much blood that he should have been unconscious. The Kroth kept coming. For everyone that fell, 2 more appeared. The tunnel floor was covered with bodies. Elder Mivith watched from the back of the chamber. He had lived through many things, but nothing like this. The humans fought without pause. They protected the wounded. They shielded the children. They would not retreat. A Velith healer named Somi approached him carefully. Elder, the humans need help. We have supplies, medicine, food. We have no way to fight, Mivith replied. We can do other things. We can carry ammunition. We can treat their wounds. We can bring them water. Mivith looked at his people. 4 million years of peace. 4 million years of avoiding conflict. Now they were hiding while strangers died for them. Something changed in his old heart. Gather volunteers, he said quietly. Anyone who wants to help. Within minutes, dozens of Velith were moving through the tunnels. They brought water to thirsty soldiers. They bandaged wounds with their small, gentle hands. They carried supplies from place to place. Freeing the humans to focus on fighting, the Rin noticed a young Velith girl helping Taiho wrap his injured arm. "You do not have to do this," the Rin told her. The girl looked up with determination in her large eyes. "You came for us. We can do something back." The Rin smiled despite everything. "What is your name?" "Kessa." "Thank you, Kessa. You are very brave." The girl beamed with pride. In that moment, something changed between the two species. They were no longer protectors and protected. They were allies. Elder Mevith approached Captain Daesung through the communication link. "Captain, I must ask you something. Why do you do this? You could leave. You could save yourselves. Why do you stay and die for people you do not know?" Daesung thought about the question. He thought about Earth and its long, bloody history. He thought about all the times humans had destroyed each other. Wars that killed millions. Cruelty that defied understanding. But he also thought about the other side. The stranger who jumped into cold water to save a drowning child. The soldier who threw himself on a grenade to save his friends. The ordinary person who stood between evil and the innocent without thinking about the cost. "On our world," Daesung said slowly, "we have a saying. The strong protect the weak. It is not a choice. It is who we are. We cannot be ourselves without it." Mevith was silent for a long moment. "You are strange creatures," he finally said. "Terrifying and beautiful at the same time. We know." In orbit, the human fleet prepared to attack. Sung Dashmin had finished his weapon. A modified pulse emitter that would collapse Croth shields instantly. But it had limited range and only worked a few times before burning out. They would have to make every shot count. The Ironheart took the lead position. Its captain was a woman named O.G. Yan, 70 years old with white hair and steel in her eyes. She had commanded warships during the colony conflicts. She had retired to spend her final years in peace. Now she was going back to war. "All ships, this is Ironheart," she broadcast. "We going hard and fast. The Steadfast takes point with their shield breaker. Everyone else, support and cover. Our job is simple. Break their formation and give our people on the ground a chance." The 7 ships moved forward. Torvik saw them coming. He laughed at first. 7 tiny vessels against his armada. It was a joke. Then the Ironheart opened fire. The old battleship was supposed to be weak and outdated. Instead, it tore through his outer defense ships like they were made of paper. Ji Yeon knew every weakness in Croth design. She had studied their tactics for years before retiring. The Steadfast dove into the chaos. Sunmin fired his weapon at the nearest Croth warship. The shields collapsed instantly. Leo Young put 3 missiles into its engine room. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. "It works!" Sunmin shouted. "Move to the next target." The human fleet fought like they had nothing to lose. Because they didn't. Either they won here or they died. There was no third option. 2 human ships were destroyed in the first hour. The Bright Wind and the Silver Dream burned to nothing by Croth weapons. Their crews died instantly, but they had done damage. 20 Croth ships were gone. The formation was breaking apart. On the surface, the news spread quickly. Help had come. Other humans were fighting above. Taeho heard and laughed despite his pain. Of course they came. "That is what we do." Kessa looked up at him with confusion. "You knew others would help." "I hoped." With humans, hope is usually enough. But Torvik was not finished. He watched his ships dying and felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Rage. Pure, burning rage. These Deathworlders had humiliated him. They had made him afraid. That was unforgivable. He made a decision. "All ships, fall back to bombardment positions," he ordered. "If we cannot have this planet, no one will. Prepare to destroy Velith Prime." His officers hesitated. War Chief, the astrium deposits will be lost if we destroy the planet. I do not care. Activate the orbital weapons. We will burn this world to ash. Around Velith Prime, Croth ships began powering up their most devastating weapons. Weapons designed to kill worlds. Hajin detected the energy buildup and went pale. Captain, she said quietly, they are going to destroy the planet. All of it. Every living thing. Daesung felt cold settle in his stomach. They had fought so hard. They had lost so much. And now Tarvik was going to murder millions out of spite. How long until they fire? 12 minutes. 12 minutes to save a world. Daesung looked at his crew. At the stars. At the planet burning below. Then we have 12 minutes, he said. Let's make them count. Croth ships filled the space around Velith Prime like a wall of metal and death. Their weapons fired at anything that moved. Debris from destroyed Velith vessels floated everywhere. The planet below burned in a dozen places. Shin, B.O. Young, sat at the pilot's controls with her hands moving faster than thought. She was young, only 26, but she flew like she had been born in space. Her eyes tracked enemy positions while her fingers adjusted course 100 times per minute. Hard turn coming, she announced. Brace. The Steadfast twisted sharply to the left. The artificial gravity struggled to keep up. Everyone on the bridge felt their bodies pressed sideways. Normal species would have passed out from the force. Humans barely noticed. A Croth missile streaked past them, missing by meters. Nice flying, Captain Daesung said calmly. Thank you, sir. Another one coming. Babuyung rolled the ship and dove straight down toward the planet. The Croth ships tried to follow, but they were too slow. Their pilots could not handle the maneuvers that B.O. Young made look easy. Sung-min watched his sensor screens with growing excitement. He was the chief engineer, a man who loved machines more than people. But right now, he was studying the enemy. Captain, I see something interesting, he said. Their shields have a flaw. Look at this pattern. Daesung leaned over to look. Sung-min pointed at the data. Every time they fire their main weapons, their shields drop for half a second. If we time our shots right, we can hit them during that window. Can we exploit that? Give me a few hours and some coffee. I will build something. The Steadfast broke through the Croth blockade and entered the atmosphere. Fire surrounded the ship as it fell through the sky. B.O. Young brought them down over the capital city, a place called Shalun. From above, it looked like a dream. Towers of white stone. Gardens everywhere. Rivers running through the streets. But half of it was burning. They landed in a square near the center of the city. The moment the engine stopped, the crew prepared to move. Choi The-rin led the ground team. She was small for a human, but her eyes were sharp and her hands never shook. As a combat medic, she had saved lives in situations that would break most people. Stay close, she told her team. We do not know what we will find. They stepped out of the ship in the smoke and silence. The city was empty. No bodies, no sounds, nothing moving. The Velith had gone somewhere, but where? Ha-Jin checked her scanner. I am detecting life signs underground. Many of them. The Velith must be hiding in tunnels. They found an entrance hidden behind a fallen wall. Stairs led down into darkness. The Rin went first with her weapon ready. The others followed. The tunnels were old, much older than the city above. The walls were carved with images of Velith history. Pictures of peace and celebration. No wars, no battles. These people had never needed to hide before. After 10 minutes of walking, they heard voices. Soft, frightened voices speaking in a language that sounded like music. They turned a corner and found them. Thousands of Velith filled an underground chamber. They were small, as the story said, with thin limbs and large dark eyes. Their skin was pale blue, almost glowing in the dim light. They huddled together in groups, holding each other. Trembling when they saw the humans. They screamed. The wren stopped immediately and held up her empty hands. "We are not here to hurt you. We came to help." The Velith backed away. Some of them fainted. Others cried. A few brave ones stood in front of the children, ready to fight even though they had no weapons. An old Velith pushed through the crowd. He was ancient, his skin wrinkled, and his eyes clouded with age. But he walked with dignity. He stopped in front of the wren and looked up at her with a mixture of fear and wonder. "You are human," he said. His voice was soft but clear. "Yes, my name is Choi the Wren. This is my team. We received your distress signal." The old one stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. "We sent that signal expecting nothing. A prayer into the darkness. And it brought us Deathworlders." "Elder Mivith," a younger Velith said nervously, "these are dangerous creatures. The stories say they eat meat. They fight. They kill. I know the stories," Elder Mivith replied. "I also know that they came when no one else did." He turned back to the wren. "Welcome to Velith Prime, humans. I am sorry we cannot offer you better hospitality. Our world is dying." Captain Daesung arrived with Ha Jin and Sungmin. He introduced himself and explained their situation. One ship, 50 crew members, limited weapons. Elder Mivith listened without expression. "You came here knowing you cannot win," the elder said finally. "Why?" Daesung thought about the question. He thought about Earth and its long history of violence and protection. He thought about all the times humans had stood between danger and the helpless. "Because you asked for help," he said simply. "That is enough." Mivith's large eyes filled with tears. "We have lived in this galaxy for 4 million years. We have met thousands of species. None of them would do what you are doing." The wren knelt down to check on a wounded Velith child nearby. The little one flinched at first, but the wren's hands were gentle. She cleaned the wound and applied medicine with careful precision. The child's mother watched with wide eyes. She had expected the Deathworlder to be rough, violent, scary. Instead, she saw kindness. "Does it hurt?" The wren asked the child softly. The little one shook her head. The wren smiled. "You are very brave. What is your name?" "Seal." "Hello, Seal. You are going to be okay." Word spread quickly through the underground chamber. The Deathworlders were not monsters. They spoke softly. They helped the wounded. They looked at the Velith, children with warm eyes instead of hunger. But the moment of peace did not last. Hajin's communicator beeped. She listened, then went pale. "Captain, the Kroth have detected our ship. Their war chief is broadcasting a message." She played it for everyone to hear. The voice was deep and cold, like rocks grinding together. "Attention, unknown vessel. I am Torvak, war chief of the Kroth. You have entered our hunting ground. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 1 hour." Daesung took the communicator and responded. His voice was calm and steady. "Torvak, this is Captain Park Daesung of the human ship Steadfast. We will not surrender. Leave this planet or face consequences." There was a long pause. Then Torvak laughed. It was an ugly sound. One human ship threatens the Kroth? You are either very brave or very stupid. We will come for you personally. I want to see what Deathworlders look like when they die. The transmission ended. Elder Mivith looked at Daesung with something new in his ancient eyes. Not fear, not despair. Something that looked almost like hope. "You challenged them," the elder whispered. "I warned them," Daesung corrected. "There is a difference." Above ground, the rumble of approaching ships shook the earth. The Kroth were coming. The wren stood up and checked her weapon. Sum-Mim began working on his shield-breaking device. Ha-Jim coordinated communications. Bio-Young ran back to the ship to prepare for whatever came next. The Velith watched the humans prepare for battle. These strange, frightening creatures from a death world had answered their call. Now, they were about to fight and possibly die for people they had just met. Elder Mivith had lived 400 years. He had seen wonders and horrors beyond counting. But he had never seen anything like this. "What are you?" he asked quietly. They soon paused and looked back at him. "We are human," he said. "And we protect the weak. It is what we do." The ground shook again. The Kroth were almost here. They were massive creatures, twice the height of humans. Their bodies were covered in natural armor, hard plates that overlapped like scales. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness. Their claws could tear through metal. 20 of them entered the underground chamber. The elite soldiers of Tarvak's army. They had conquered 100 worlds and killed millions of beings. They expected this to be easy. Choi the Rin stood in their path with 5 human marines behind her. Kim Taeho was the youngest, just 22 years old, but his hands were steady on his rifle. He had something to prove. "Defensive positions," the Rin ordered quietly. "Wait for my signal." The Kroth commander stepped forward. He was huge, even for his species. Scars covered his face like a map of violence. "You are the Deathworlders," he growled. "I expected something more impressive." The Rin did not respond. She watched. She waited. "Your captain made threats," the commander continued. "Torvak found that amusing. He sent us to bring you back alive. He wants to watch you suffer." Still the Rin said nothing. Her silence seemed to bother the Kroth. They were used to fear, to begging, to screaming. This small human woman just looked at them like they were insects. "Surrender now, and we will kill you quickly," the commander offered. The Rin smiled. It was not a friendly smile. No. The commander roared and charged. What happened next was something the Velith would talk about for generations. The Kroth were stronger. They were bigger. They had natural weapons built into their bodies. By every measure, they should have destroyed the humans in seconds. But strength is not everything. The Rin moved like water. She dodged the commander's first strike and fired 3 shots into the gap between his armor plates. He stumbled. She fired again. He fell. The other Kroth attacked in fury. The tunnel became chaos. Taeho found himself facing 2 enemies at once. One of them slashed his arm, cutting deep through muscle and bone. Blood poured from the wound. The pain was incredible. He kept fighting. The Kroth in front of him hesitated. In his species, a wound like that meant retreat. It meant survival above all else. This human was still attacking, still moving forward, still trying to kill. Taeho shot one Kroth in the face. He tackled the other and drove his combat knife through its eye. He stood up, covered in blood both human and alien, and looked for the next enemy. "What are you?" the dying Kroth whispered. Taeho did not answer. He picked up his rifle with his good hand and rejoined the fight. The battle lasted 8 minutes. When it ended, all 20 Kroth elite soldiers were dead. 3 humans were wounded. None were killed. The Rin wrapped Taeho's arm with quick practiced movements. "You need surgery," she said. Later. That was not a suggestion. With respect, it was not a suggestion either. "More will come. I will be here when they do." The Rin wanted to argue, but she understood. This was who they were. This was why other species called them Deathworlders. Not because they were cruel or evil, because they would not stop. Because they could not stop. Something in human nature refused to surrender, refused to quit, refused to accept defeat, even when it was certain. The Velith had watched from hiding. Now they emerged slowly, staring at the human soldiers with new eyes. A young Velith approached Taeho hesitantly. He was small, like a child, but his eyes were old with fear. "You are hurt," the Vela said. "I know. Why did you not run? You could have escaped." Tejo looked at the little being and felt something soft in his heart. "If I ran, they would have reached you. I could not let that happen." The Veleth began to cry. Silent tears rolled down his blue face. "We thought you were monsters," he whispered. "We are," Tejo said gently. "Just not to you." In orbit, the battle was going differently. Shinbyo Young flew the Steadfast like it was part of her body. She dove and twisted and rolled through the Kroth fleet. Missiles and plasma bolts filled the space around her, but nothing touched the ship. Bae Sung-min worked at his console with desperate focus. His fingers flew across keyboards. His eyes never left the data streaming across his screens. "Almost there," he muttered. "Just need a few more minutes." Captain Dae-sung stood at the center of the bridge, calm as stone. Ha-jin relayed reports from the surface. 3 wounded but alive. Kroth assault team destroyed. More enemies approaching. "Captain," Bio-young called out. 3 Kroth ships are breaking formation. They are heading toward our position. Can you lose them? I can try. The Steadfast accelerated hard. The pursuing ships fell behind, then adjusted course. They were learning. Sung-min suddenly laughed. It was the laugh of a man who had just solved an impossible puzzle. "I have it," he announced. "I can make their shields collapse, but I need to get close." Very close. Da-sung considered this. "How close?" "Within weapons range." "That means they can hit us too," Sung-min shrugged. "Everything has a price." Dae-sung nodded slowly. He looked at his crew. These people had followed him into certain death without hesitation. They deserved to know what was happening. "Ha-jin, what is the situation on the ground?" Ha-jin listened to her earpiece. Her face changed as she received new information. "Captain, I have decoded some Kroth communications. They are not here for food. Veleth Prime has massive deposits of astrium." Everyone on the bridge understood immediately. Astrium was the rarest element in the galaxy. It powered faster than light engines. Whoever controlled the astrium supply controlled everything. "If the Kroth get this planet," Ha-jin continued, "they will have enough fuel to threaten dozens of worlds. This is not just about the Veleth anymore." Dae-sung felt the weight of that information settle on his shoulders. They had come to answer a distress call. Now they were standing between the Kroth and galactic domination. "Well," he said quietly, "that changes things." "Sir?" Bio-young asked. "Before, we were here because it was right. Now we are here because it is necessary. The Kroth cannot have this planet. Whatever it takes." He opened the channel to the surface. "The Rin, status report." The Rin's voice came back clear despite the chaos around her. "Enemy reinforcements approaching. Hundreds of them. We cannot hold the tunnels for long." "Understood. We are working on a solution up here. Buy us time." "How much time?" Dae-sung looked at Sung-min. 2 hours, the engineer said. 2 hours, Dae-sung repeated to the Rin. There was a brief pause. Then the Rin's voice returned, as calm as if she were ordering lunch. 2 hours. We will manage. The channel closed. On the surface, the Rin turned to her team. Tejo with his ruined arm. The others, tired and wounded. And behind them, thousands of Veleth who had never held a weapon in their lives. "You heard the captain," she said. 2 hours. Tejo checked his rifle with his good hand. Plenty of time. The ground shook. The Kroth were coming. Not 20 this time. Hundreds. The Rin looked at the tunnel entrance. She looked at the Veleth huddled behind her. She thought about everything humans had ever fought for. Everything they had ever protected. "Defensive positions," she ordered. "Nobody gets past us." The first Kroth appeared in the darkness. Then another. Then dozens. They poured into the tunnels like a flood of death. The humans opened fire. Above, Torvak received reports from the surface. His elite soldiers were dead. More troops were dying every minute. And the Deathworlders refused to fall. For the first time in his long life of war, Torvak felt something he did not recognize. It took him a moment to name it: fear. Yunhejin sat alone at her station on the HS Steadfast. The ship was quiet during the night cycle. Most of the crew was sleeping. Only the soft hum of machines and the occasional beep of sensors kept her company. She liked these hours. The universe felt peaceful when everyone else was dreaming. Then her console lit up with a pattern she had never seen before. Hajin leaned forward and studied the signal. It was weak, almost too faint to detect. But something about it made her heart beat faster. The frequency was old. Very old. She checked the Galactic database and found a match that made her breath catch in her throat. This frequency had not been used in over 3,000 years. It was a universal distress call from an age when the galaxy was younger, and species still hoped that strangers might help strangers. She ran the signal through translation software. The message was simple and desperate. "We are dying. Please, anyone, help us." Hajin pressed the communication button. "Captain Daesung to the bridge. We have a situation." Park Daesung arrived 5 minutes later. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and calm eyes that had seen too much. He had commanded the Steadfast for 12 years. In that time, he had learned that the universe was mostly empty and often cruel. But he had also learned that hope could survive in the strangest places. "What do you have?" he asked. Hajin played the signal for him. She watched his face as he listened. Something shifted in his expression. It was small, but she noticed. "Where is it coming from?" Daesung asked. "Velith Prime, the homeworld of the Velith species." Daesung knew about the Velith. Everyone in the galactic community knew about them. They were small beings, no taller than human children, with delicate bodies and large eyes. Their world was a paradise of gentle weather and low gravity. They had never known war. They traded in art and music and beautiful things. Other species sometimes made fun of them for being weak. But the Velith had survived for millions of years by being kind and useful to everyone. "The Velith have no enemies," Daesung said. "Why would they send a distress call?" Hajin pulled up more data. Her face went pale as she read. "Captain, there are reports coming through back channels. Velith Prime is under attack. The Kroth found them." The name hit Daesung like a punch to the stomach. The Kroth were nomads. They traveled from system to system in massive fleets, taking what they wanted and destroying what they could not use. They had wiped out entire civilizations. The Galactic Council had tried to stop them many times, but the Kroth were strong and fast and utterly without mercy. "How long ago did this attack begin?" Daesung asked. 3 weeks. "The Velith have been fighting alone. No one is coming to help them. Why not?" Ajin's voice was bitter. "Because no one wants to anger the Kroth. The Council voted to condemn the attack, but they will not send ships. They say it is too dangerous." Daesung stood very still. The bridge was silent, except for the soft pulse of the distress signal playing on repeat. "We are dying. Please, anyone, help us." "How far are we from Velith Prime?" he asked. 18 hours at maximum speed. "And our mission orders?" "Exploration and survey of the outer systems. Nothing critical." Daesung walked to the main view screen and looked out at the stars. Somewhere in that darkness, millions of gentle beings were watching their world burn. They had sent a message into the void hoping someone would hear, hoping someone would care enough to respond. The galaxy called humans many things. Deathworlders was the most common name. Humans came from Earth, a planet of extreme temperatures, violent weather, dangerous predators, and crushing gravity. To survive there, Humans had evolved to be strong, stubborn, and almost impossible to kill. Other species found them frightening. Humans could run for hours without stopping. They could survive wounds that would kill most beings. They ate almost anything. They adapted to almost any environment. Most species kept their distance from humans. They traded with them carefully and avoided making them angry. The general wisdom in the galaxy was simple. Do not bother the Deathworlders, and they will not bother you. But there was something else about humans that the galaxy often forgot. Something that did not fit with their reputation as dangerous monsters. Humans protected the weak. It was written into their bones. It was part of their nature. On Earth, the strong had always defended those who could not defend themselves. Parents died for children. Soldiers died for strangers. It was not logical. It was not efficient, but it was human. They soon turned back to Hajin. Wake the crew. All hands to stations. Hajin's eyes widened. Captain, are you sure? We are one ship. The Kroth of hundreds. I heard you. Wake the crew. Hajin sent the alert. Within minutes, the Steadfast came alive with movement and voices. Crew members ran to their posts with questions in their eyes. What was happening? Why were they changing course? Daesung addressed them over the ship's speakers. His voice was steady and clear. This is the captain. We have received a distress call from Velith Prime. The Velith are under attack by the Kroth. The Galactic Council will not help them. No other ships are responding. We are 18 hours away. He paused to let the words sink in. I will not order anyone to come with me. This is not our fight. The Velith are not our allies. We owe them nothing. But they are dying, and they called for help. I intend to answer that call. The bridge was silent. Then Hajin spoke. Setting course for Velith Prime, Captain. The navigator nodded. Course confirmed. One by one, every station reported ready. No one hesitated. No one asked to leave. Daesung felt a warmth in his chest that he had not felt in years. Maximum speed, he ordered. Let's go help some people. The Steadfast turned toward Velith Prime and jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars became streaks of light. The ship hummed with power and purpose. 18 hours later, they dropped out of hyperspace and saw the horror waiting for them. Velith Prime was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds, a world of peace and gentle living. But around it, like a swarm of dark insects, hundreds of Kroth warships filled the sky. Fires burned on the surface. Smoke rose from cities. The Velith were still fighting, but they were losing. Hajin's voice was barely a whisper. Captain, there are so many. Daesung looked at the enemy fleet. He looked at his single ship. He thought about everything they would face. Then he thought about the signal that still played softly on the bridge. We are dying. Please, anyone, help us. Take us in, he said. Find a gap in their formation. We're going down to that planet. The Steadfast moved forward into the fire.